article is absolutely worthless.
I keep my hands on myself. Think I'll dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Yes, my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books. I'm here with Tom Roberts from Riff Raff.
Hello, hello.
And we are back after a couple weeks. It's been a little while since we recorded our last podcast. I don't know, has anything exciting been happening to you, Tom?
Not really, no. I have no idea. I cannot answer that question.
Oh, man. Any new developments, though?
I mean, just little bureaucratic things along the way. Nothing worth getting into. It's all kind of depressing, to be honest. So
That sucks.
yeah, things move slow. That's all there is to it.
Can only imagine. So we're going to talk about a few different articles or things that bugged us. Mostly, I think this is a podcast of things that bugged us.
Yeah, a little bit of that. It's just sort of in the air, considering the state of the world. Everything is annoying. So
Yeah, remember a few weeks ago or a month or two ago when we were talking about the NEA having Sylvester Stallone as its head, and we're like, oh, that'd be really crazy and funny. Now there may not be an NEA.
right. Although it appears as though his budget doesn't call for cutting it. So
I assumed it wouldn't. My anxiety over that has been as low as possible. Because I just didn't. It's one of those things that pops up so often where people talk about it getting cut, or there's reports from the Heritage Foundation, which made that one budget that circulated online, which is always talking about cutting it. But those aren't real, actual things. So I'm not terribly surprised, but still, it's a bit of a relief, I suppose.
Yeah, it also seems like a little bit of a red herring where they threaten to cut it. And then when they don't, they're allowed some other sort of concession that is, much worse in the long run. But, it doesn't get the attention that cutting the NEA would get. So.
And that's what happens with all business stuff. You always throw that out there.
Exactly.
This is book related and a long time ago, but there's a point in time where Barnes & Noble was talking about purchasing Ingram, and all the independent stores are up in a state of arms that Barnes & Noble would control stores and the distribution of the warehouse or the wholesaler, and that would be too integrated. And meanwhile, they didn't really have any intention of doing that, but they bought up or consolidated their BarnesandNoble.com and all their divisions at once, and it was sort of a way that they could do something that other people might have criticized without getting any criticism for it because everyone was focused on something that they were never really planning on.
Right. It's classic diversionary tactics.
Yeah, like magicians.
Exactly.
Right. So I have a couple opening things to say. One is I found out about this book, and this book just is the beginning of my. I think that I love baseball, and I know you do too. And this season is going to be rough, I have a feeling, for a couple of reasons. One being
you specifically, or
no? Or I think for anyone who's not a Red Sox or Cubs fan.
Yes, I was actually emailing Brad and Steven Sparks out in Bay Area about. I'm sure you saw this. The Mets prospect who very casually caught a flying bat that had slipped out of a batter's hand during spring training. Did you see this?
I didn't see the video, but I saw the headline.
It's pretty remarkable. But Brad, of course, makes fun of me and says, Mets highlight of the year right there. And it was oddly enough, I had just bought a new Mets hat because mine was all gross and nasty. And I was like, there's no way I want to be mistaken in any way, shape, or form for a Red Sox fan simply because I live in New England. I was like, I need to get a Mets hat right now.
That's a good.
It's already annoying around here with the Red Sox.
God, the Red Sox are loaded too. It's gonna be awful. But the nonstop coverage already from ESPN and MLB and everywhere is all about the Cubs and how awesome the Cubs are and the Cubs this and Cubs that. They're even articles about how Jason Hayward they're so impressed with his new approach to the plate, even though he has 0 hits. It's insane. It's like everything that they do for the Cavs and the Warriors and the Patriots, but doubled down. And the thing that I found out about that is so dumb is there's a book that came out or is coming out. No, it's coming out at the end of the month called The Cubs Way: The Zen of Building the Best Team in Baseball and Breaking the Curse.
Is this by Joe Madden or?
No, it's by Tom Verducci.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. I saw that and it's just like, fuck you. Like, I don't need this. The world doesn't need this.
Yeah, who's reading that book?
Cubs fans, I suppose.
Do you really think they're going to read that book? Really?
No, I mean maybe they'll buy it because they'll buy anything.
You're right.
They'll buy it because most Cubs fans now are not actually Cubs fans. They're like Cubs fans of the past 3 months.
Right. I mean, there were definitely a lot of diehard Cubs fans for all those years. They just don't strike me as the type to then read a postmortem of this kind about Zen approaches to building a team. Just doesn't seem to fit into the DNA of the team itself. I don't know.
Well, they're so annoying. Joe Madden's so annoying too. But
would love him if he was your coach.
I don't think so. I don't like the gimmicky like everyone's got to wear a crazy suit or we're going to sue you because we keep it loose and fun. Like I don't like that stuff. I don't like the opposite of it either. But I don't like that part of it where it feels super like pay attention to me sort of thing. And like, aren't I crazy and keeping everyone loose? Like, I don't like that at all. And I wouldn't like that from a coach.
Just distracting from the actual, nuts and bolts of the game.
Yeah, which I mean, they need, but they just don't need to publicize it in the way that they do. And like, get off on it.
The sports media in general is so lame, and they just love talking about that stuff because they don't really have any interest in analyzing sports the way it should be done. And so they just talk about these things. I mean, it's the same, every year the NCAA tournament comes around and all you see it's the same thing with the Olympics. All you see during the coverage is discussions of whatever player on the team had to struggle with adversity and blah, blah, blah. There's no actual discussion of what kind of offense they're running or anything like that. So
okay, so we don't like that book, but which do you dislike more, The Cubs Way or all the attention being paid to Tim Tebow?
I sort of blocked out all the Tim Tebow stuff. I don't read stories. I just kind of ignore it. It's annoying because it's on the Mets, but I just have faith that it's all just going to peter out and won't matter in the end.
when they put him on the 25-man roster.
That's definitely not going to happen. No way.
If it did, that would be the worst thing ever.
Isn't he old at this point?
For a baseball player? I don't know. I don't know how old he is. I mean, your prime is like 28 to 32, 33, so he could be within that range.
Sure, but that's if you've been playing since you were 15 years old.
Yeah, and he's not. Has not.
No.
The other thing that I wanted to tell you about, because I just think that this is maybe it's probably insider baseball, maybe too much. I don't know. But okay, so every year for the past few years, the America Reads Spanish. I guess that's what they're called. It's this group from Spain that helps sponsor promoting books that are written in Spanish and getting the word out to editors and to whomever through like their website and through like various programs to promote these books, right? Getting like readers reports done and whatever. And the way that the process works is we get there's a group of people on the panel. We're given 189 in this case synopses essentially, in which is like a one-page sheet that has the title, the number of editions of the book, its price, year of publication, pages, who the agent or publisher is, the description of the agent or publisher, the synopsis of the book, which is one paragraph, which is what I'm going to talk about, then one paragraph of the author's biography, and then where the rights are available. And you have to, in the first round of this, take these 189 sheets of paper and give them a score between a 1 and 10 based on that information alone, which I think is almost impossible. Like there's certain things like you can get, I guess it's very easy to like decide what's like between a 1 and a 4 and between an 8 and a 10, but in between there, it feels completely random. like very.
What is this 1 through 10 like in terms of your likelihood of acquiring it?
I know whether it's the quality of the book, so that they would. Yeah, I mean that's another question. I've always interpreted it as the quality of the book, and as so far as it deserves to be one of the 10 books that they end up promoting.
But that's to all American publishers?
It's through their website. I mean, the amount of American publishers that actually deal with it are negligible. But yeah, theoretically, although it does mix together, like there's graphic novels, fiction, occasionally a work of like nonfiction biography, and then children's books. And the children's books in particularly are problematic because some of them seem like they would probably be good to exist for one reason or another in English, but they almost never get any of the right scores because most people are paying attention to the literature ones because they seem much more important to have some sort of backing for than like a children's book about like autism.
Right. It's hard with the children's books because there are a limited number of, topics that children are going to be interested in. And we have so many children's books being published in this country that it's really hard to say that we need this one from Spanish as opposed to the American version of it.
Right. And related to your original point, I'm never sure whether or not like these things the children's book publishers are just finding out about these books anyways, and that maybe they don't even need to be promoted in that way.
Right.
I don't know how children's publishers find books. So I usually base them on whether or not it seems like a book that I think would be good if it existed in English.
Okay.
And however you want to interpret that, that's fine. So here is one of them, and I want to read up till the last sentence and ask you for what grade you give it. And then I'll read the last sentence and see what you're saying. So this is literally what we get. Synopsis. One weekend of torrential rain, 4 people come together in La Solana, a small Mediterranean village. Victor and Valeria's marriage is in crisis, and their business trip looks as though it may really be the end of their relationship. Briogan and Brigitte are an artist and tourist guide, washed up in this lost corner of the coast and meandering its narrow streets without ever meeting. The first part of the novel, The Wind, brings stormy news from the outside world, and the second, The Tide, disturbs the very soul of each of the 4 characters. The storm, a car accident, and the mysterious disappearance of a child all combine to emphasize the emptiness and lacking of 4 lives caught up in the incoming storm on the edge of something life-changing. Give me a grade.
I mean, there's so much potential there. That could be like a great sort of mystery noir book. It could be It could be, what's his name? The guy who writes like, oh God, I'm never going to remember his name. Like The Notebook, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, Nicholas Sparks.
Nicholas Sparks. It could totally, depending on the style and the way all the meat and bones of the actual writing. It could be Nicholas Sparks, or it could be something totally. It could be Javier Marias. I have no idea. I don't know. I would go like 5, I guess.
That's what I always end up being around the 5s. Then there's this sentence. This intimate and intriguing novel has shadows of Turbes, Gupgui, and Welbeck.
I mean, that would make it more intriguing to me if those things are true.
And there's no way to tell. So I jacked up my grade to a 7 just based on that. I was at like 5 like you were, and then it's like, oh, Turbes and Welbeck? Sure. Then if it's like that, okay. So what happens, just to clarify a bit, depending on the how many, I don't know how many they choose. I think maybe it's like 30 or 40 of these, depending on how many are submitted. But the ones that get the best grades, they then get readers' reports done on, and then we re-rank them. So if it makes a cut, you get a lot more information about the book. But this beginning part, like that's just literally reading jacket copy and then assigning a value to the book itself based on the jacket copy.
But do you have reviews on there?
No, that's all I have.
No. Wow.
I have that, really, and then the author's biography. Nere Basabe was born in Bilbao in 1978 and has a diploma in political studies.
Useless information. That's really unfortunate. Who writes these things? Do you know? Is it the agency or is it the publisher?
The agency or the publisher. In this case, it's an agency, Agencia Literaria Virginia Lopez Ballesteros. And the description is a Spanish-French literary agency founded in 2005 with offices in Madrid and Paris, representing mainly writers in Spanish and French, but also extending the English writing with 2 U.S. authors currently on the books. And then there's the publisher who published it is Salto de Pagina, which I don't really know who that is. So, like, all the cues that you might use are almost all gone.
I was going to ask, who are these American writers? That would be useful information.
I could look this up theoretically and do research on it, but with 189 of them, doing research like that on every one is pretty complicated.
Yeah, that is asking quite a bit of you. All for nothing, basically.
Well, yeah, they do compensate you for doing this, so it's fine, but...
And could you like preempt this whole process and like say I would like get get my own reader's report on this and see if it's worth acquiring? Or
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it wouldn't stop their process because I think there's like 10 people on the jury, so they'd still go through that. But okay, I'll tell you something in a second. There are like 2 that I've already set aside to try and get more information on. This being one of them.
Okay.
Which is why I thought it would be interesting to talk about, because it's a crazy process, and sort of relates, like maybe later on a different podcast we can talk about this. But I wrote an article for the London Book Fair PW Show Daily thing that's on like things like criteria or like settings that would help various countries get more books translated into English. Like what things that they have control over or they don't have control over that impact like the U.S. publishers. And this sort of relates to that in my mind. And I was sort of like intrigued by it because it's like, well, here's what these people from Spain are doing. And I don't know that this is the best way to do it at all, because it doesn't give you that kind of context, but it's something.
Definitely something. I mean, it's not unlike what the French Publishers Agency does, and they don't represent everything, but you go to their website and they have these summaries and biographies of these books that are very clearly done in a way that is for people like you or editors at wherever, FSG. They're definitely written in a way to intrigue editors and American publishers, not necessarily readers or critics or anything like that. And then, they will tell you like, oh, we have a sample translation, we have the whole translation, that sort of thing. And it makes it easy to go through. But like, you also have to think to go there, like, yes, they do their own outreach. And, I had lunch with all those people many times when I was an editor, but it's definitely, it's a useful thing. It's just, you feel like they can only cast their net so far.
Yeah.
Miss things, which of course it's inevitable, but, I don't know. I don't know that this sort of short summary sort of thing, it's not a bad way of doing it. I just don't know that putting them all together in such a massive sort of overload of information is useful either.
Okay, so here are the 2 U.S. U.S. writers that agency represents: J.P.S. Brown and Louis Slobodkin.
Nope. Don't know who those people are.
But they also represent Pedro Juan Gutierrez from Cuba, who wrote the Dirty Havana trilogy that Natasha Wimmer translated way back when, and is really interesting. It's someone you'd probably like if you like, Bukowski. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Huh. I do like Bukowski, unfortunately. Shame of myself.
Yeah, so I just looked back, and like the last year's panel, like we ended up with like one children's book, one YA book. I think it keeps scrolling funny here. I might be missing one other, and then a couple people that like Edgardo Kozorinsky, who's in one of our anthologies and is like has like a pretty good reputation. He's on here. I think he was maybe the top vote getter for his book Dark. But most of the others aren't people that or that have been translated. But I do remember that last year one of the people that we looked at was a book by Andres Barba, who's been published by Hispa Books and also by Transit. I think it's the first book that Transit published is by Barba. And that was one that, like, I read the reader's report and was like, oh, we should totally, like, look into this. But the rights had already been sold.
You're talking about Such Small Hands?
I believe so.
Yeah, I read that. It's really good. It's really good. Interesting. It's a weird process. It definitely helps, right? I mean, I just feel bad for like the smaller countries that, maybe less resources for them. Not even, smaller, but just where the governments aren't concerned about these things and aren't diverting funds to that. And so it's left to the publishers themselves and whatever writing organizations there are in the agents and that sort of thing. Like Bulgaria, are they doing this kind of thing? Do they have the funds for that? I don't know.
Yeah, they do it through the contest that we host.
But it's just, we've talked about this before, that the German, Spanish, and French sort of overwhelm the rest of the countries with the volume of books that they're sort of pushing onto the U.S. market.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So it ends up taking, a lot of effort on the part of editors and publishers to go out and find other things instead. Because you will find, if you just wanted to publish French literature, you could find plenty of things you would want to publish, and they'd be good, and some of them might sell. And yeah, you have to, if your goal is to branch out and have, more than just that, it definitely takes work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's so many problems that go along with that too. Not knowing the country's literary scene, not how many people can read it.
Right, exactly.
All that stuff. So you went to, I think maybe we want to talk about your trip to the store. So
it was in the news earlier this week. On Tuesday, I think it opened, and was in, shelf awareness and PW and all of that Amazon opened their first retail store on the East Coast, and it's in a city called Dedham, I want to say, which is south of Boston, sort of, I don't know, probably 20 minutes south of Boston and like half an hour from me going north. And I had never even heard of this town, never knew anything about it. So I was like, oh, fuck it. I'll drive up there and check out this Amazon store. So I went yesterday around, I don't know, lunchtime. And like I said, I had never been to Dedham. It is, if we're just going to judge by this like absurd outdoor mall situation where the store is, rather posh neighborhood, rather posh city. So it's a giant like outdoor sort of, it's like a strip mall, but much newer and nicer, and it clearly was built in like the last 10 years. There's a Whole Foods and an LL Bean and some more high end stuff and all of that. And then tucked in next to I have no idea what it was next to. God, I'm blanking. Jewelry store, I want to say, and then who knows what. There's the Amazon store, and it's big. It's like I walked in and it's massive. It's 3,000 square feet maybe.
Wow.
And there's a cafe in the middle. Not a lot of seats at the cafe, but definitely like, some seating and, full on cafe, espresso bar and sandwiches and all that sort of stuff. And then I sent you some pictures.
These are crazy.
They are crazy. I was showing them to Emma yesterday, and it's kind of amazing the way the entire store is set up to basically mimic their online experience. And so, I don't know what order of these photos you're looking in, but there's one, that says like highly rated. There's a sign in front of a display that says highly rated children's. And it says 4.8 stars and above. And this is clearly just, based on their ratings on their website, and you're supposed to just give into that immediately and recognize that that's where it's coming from, that they don't even have to spell out that these are customer reviews or anything like that.
Right.
And so they have a bunch of displays like that right at the front of the store where it's highly rated children, highly rated cookbooks, blah, blah, blah. And then there's one that's like most wished for books on Amazon. And here you've got some hardcover books, right? Because no one wants to buy them for themselves, even though they're discounted. They'd rather, someone buy them for them or whatever. And so you've got the Atlas Obscura book, which I don't know how much that is, but I'm going to guess like $40. I don't know what that Tools of Titans thing is, but looks pretty offensive. And then on the left, which is barely cut off, you can't really see it, is the Anthony Bourdain cookbook.
Oh, that's what that is.
With the illustrations by Ralph Steadman. I don't know what this Magnolia Story thing is.
By Chip and Joanna Gaines? Oh, that is amazing.
Who are those people?
I don't know. I have no idea.
But the point is that these are like, more expensive books. I think the implication is like, if you're looking for a gift, chances are the person you're looking to buy that gift for wants one of these books.
Let me tell you real quick. Anyone listening to this is probably saying, you guys that were idiots. Chip and Joanna Gaines are the stars of HGTV's Fixer Upper.
Okay, sure. Why is it called the Magnolia? I don't care. This is not information.
I don't want to know. I quit. I just wanted to see who they were. Okay, go on.
And then also in the front of the store, and then mixed throughout there's a picture here of the If You Like with an arrow pointing to one side, and then You'll Love and book pointing to the other side. And it's 1 if you like, and then 3 to the right. You'll love, which I couldn't fit it in the picture, but so the one I took a picture of was the Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. It's like a video game sort of thing. And then to the right of it is Off to Be the Wizard,
which looks terrible.
I don't even know what that is. But on the far right of that was a Philip K. Dick book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So also clearly echoing their, customers also bought sort of algorithm on the website, right? You're immediately supposed to understand that that's what you're looking at. And they've done a pretty good job of sort of mimicking it and making it look the same. You'll notice everything is faced out.
I was going to ask that. Is there anything that they have shelves that are like normal shelves with books spine out?
No.
None.
Not a single one.
Wow.
Everything is face out. And you can't really see here, maybe in some of the other photos. So they have these display stands that sort of keep a copy at the front of the shelf. And then behind it are supplemental copies of the book. And presumably, I didn't see it in action, but presumably, like if you took the one in front, like an employee would be there to put it right back out in front.
A drone.
Or even if they get down to 2 copies, it's still right at the front of the shelf.
Wow.
If you go, where else? Okay. There's also, before we get to the section part, also at the front of the store is this thing that says new hardcover fiction.
Uh-huh.
I thought was the most ridiculous way to compile a display. Selected using customer ratings, pre-orders, sales, and popularity on Goodreads, plus books we love.
The plus books we love is what makes it ridiculous.
That's so many things. Like, why can't they just leave it saying new hardcover fiction?
So I have a question about, or maybe an idea about that. Is it partially because we, as a society, are now becoming more adept to the idea that we'd like to know why things are being selected the way they are, that we know that there's these algorithms and these mechanisms in the background, and that making them transparent is just something you come to expect?
I suppose it's possible. I mean, if you think of like 538, for example, it's not enough to know why Nate Silver predicts a certain outcome for whatever it is, the NCAA tournament or the election. People want to know the actual details that go into it and nitpick over those details and urge them to tweak it constantly to make sure that it's as accurate a prediction as possible, even though it's not always accurate.
Plus, there's a subtle cue going on here that this isn't just new hardcover fiction that randomly came out this week, but this is new hardcover fiction that everyone's talking about, or that's desired. It's desirable new hardcover fiction, which would be implied already. But I wonder if that's effective. The people that are just looking for a book in a store, that are in the Amazon store, are like, oh, well, this must be good because there's a lot of popularity for it on Goodreads.
The entire store is set up in a way that you are supposed to be just peer pressured into buying whatever book. Everything is, everyone loves this book, you should read it too. That's their entire algorithm. Everything is geared towards everyone else is reading this, everyone else is reading this, everyone else is reading this.
Or at least giving you these sort of IMDb ratings. Because they're the ratings from Amazon. So I don't think you mentioned this yet, but every single book has this black tag that says Amazon customer review, or maybe it doesn't always say Amazon customer review, but a lot of them do. And then it has a quote from the review, the name of the person, sometimes how they got the book, and then the number of stars that it's received based on how many reviews as of whatever date. So this one that I'm looking at is The Spy. I don't know what the name. Oh, The Spy, a novel by Paulo Coelho. And it says 3.6 stars, 125 reviews as of 2/7/2017.
Yeah, exactly. And also, by the way, I can't believe that book, The Alchemist, needs a review. Right, that's why I sent you a picture of Catcher in the Rye and then the Fountainhead. It's like, I mean, it's fucking Catcher in the Rye. Like,
you could use so many other quotes. Well, this is interesting too. So there's so much about this that's fascinating, actually. And it ties back into something I said a long time ago about this store. But here, so the J.D. Salinger one and the Ayn Rand Fountainhead one have a couple things in common. But just looking at the Catcher in the Rye one, it begins with Amazon customer review and then denotes 226 people found this review helpful.
yeah.
Then it has the review, a quote from like Eric San Juan. J.D. Salinger captures the bitterly confused mind of a youth who hates the whole world, not because the world is worth hating, but because he's frustrated at his own ability to get along in that world. Okay, so there's a million people that have written things about Catcher in the Rye that are more well known than Eric San Juan. But then also the best part of this to me is that it says Vine customer review of free product. And the same thing for the Fountainhead. Like
yeah,
these are,
I was curious about that.
The Fountainhead isn't even a person. It just says Amazon customer, Vine customer review of free product. 20 people found this review helpful. So like, I feel like this is what they're really doing with these stores is just gathering information.
Yeah, I mean, that's very clear. Also, why can't they get italics?
Yeah, what the shit? Like the Ayn Rand one has it like in quotation marks. The Fountainhead, and they're straight quotation marks. They're like,
Yeah,
it looks like it's copied out of like a shitty like Word Perfect or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't understand I guess for like the sake of uniformity, they need to put customer reviews on everything. But like the one for the Fountainhead, they couldn't just find a name. It's very strange. And then I don't know. Personally, like Em and I had a thing where like we were at a movie last night and she was talking to someone and it's a French film festival. And she asked her, oh, what's your favorite movie at the festival? And she had said some movie, and I had sort of said, no, I don't want to see that. And the woman was like, oh, no, it's my favorite of the festival. And afterwards, Emma was like, see? And I was like, I don't know that person. What do I care what she thinks is the favorite? Like, the idea that I'm supposed to just give in to, like, peer pressure from strangers, I mean, maybe I'm just wired differently, but, like, it is not going to work on me. And yet, Amazon seems to function entirely that way. And it's proven to work, clearly.
Although also, like, you're taking it as peer pressure in some ways. And another way of looking at it would be that they don't care and this is probably true, people don't care about critics or don't care about, like, those big names so much as they care about the person who lives down the road from them. So seeing, like, someone down the road from them, like the random neighbor who says something about a book is less pretentious, but also like is equally valid because how many people actually read reviews or pay attention? Like if there's something like James Wood for Catcher in the Rye, are people going to be like, oh shit, I better get that because James Wood said so? Or is that any more important than Eric San Juan? I hope Eric San Juan is not a listener to this podcast. I'm sure he's not, but like
he's okay. Can we back up a step? Why is anyone okay? How does Vine work? Maybe I don't understand this. How is anyone getting free review copies of Catcher in the Rye at this point?
That I don't understand. Vine, I know is something that you can get selected for or sign up for, in which you become like a person that's like that gets free. You get free stuff. It's like a way that if a publisher wants to send out their books to X number of pre-registered readers and reviewers at Amazon who are very likely to give reviews, I think you can get a book into that program.
But why would Catcher in the Rye or the Fountainhead be in there?
My best guess is that they were new editions that the publisher printed and was just like, well, we might as well put it in there because then it'll get enough attention that it'll get into their click stream, and then the new version of the Fountainhead will show up more prominently or more frequently on people's pages, rather than just like not doing that. And then you're just relying upon people that happen to want to go find the Fountainhead, seeing that there's a new edition.
Right, because the new ISBN, the reviews are not going to transfer over.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing, because this Catcher in the Rye is that particular cover.
Right, it's not the little mass market next the white cover. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, this was going to be my last comment on this whole thing, although we should talk about the fiction section. Was yes, that they are completely disregarding critics in their process, and I don't know what that says. I mean, we've talked about this before that, there's clearly a lack of respect for critics. Part of that is the publication's fault themselves in that they've, put themselves on too high of a pedestal and then decided to only review a certain type of book, and then very much limited the number of books that they review at any given time, and that sort of thing. So it's become this sort of rarefied thing. And that if you just want like a good mystery, like, you're out of luck. And so I get that. I understand why people would sort of feel that critics are just sort of blowhards or whatever else you want to say. And then, of course, on the other side is like the culture in general has sort of become proudly ignorant about, definitions of good art or whatever. And this is just a commentary on like, American culture in general, but it's true. I mean, there's been a backlash against, elites for going on 20 years now. So this is just a symptom of it.
I think that there's part of that. There's also just not even like a disdain or disregard, just like disinterest. Like, I don't know, like when I talk to students, they never, and I don't think I would have as a student either, they never pay attention to like the New York Times book review or NPR or any of those things. It's like, oh, someone mentioned a book to me that's a friend of mine that they read, and so I'll pay attention to that. But they just don't know. They just don't care. Like it's not even like they're like, oh, they're elitist or I don't want to read the books that they're reviewing there. It's just like they're not even aware of most things that exist. Like I can ask them names of websites that you'd think of as like big literary websites to people who are self-proclaimed book readers, voracious book readers, and they won't know any of them.
But this is where Amazon could step in and, make an effort to include those critics. And because they don't hold the rights to those things, they don't want to give any money to anybody, any attention to anybody. They want to control everything that is said about everything. They're not going to do that. They're never going to put, New York Times 10 best of the year or Washington Post, 10 best of the year or anything like that. Why?
All that information is available on their website, but is available elsewhere. So maybe like they are highlighting their not proprietary. I guess it is proprietary. If you leave an Amazon review on Amazon, Amazon has that review.
Yes.
So yeah. I feel like it's that there's some amount of information or work that they've done in evaluating why people end up buying books, and that the names of critics or those lists are less relevant than we give them credit for.
Oh, that's definitely true. I mean, look, books win the National Book Award and don't sell anything.
Yeah, no one pays any attention.
Yeah, it's sort of irrelevant. It'll get more copies in the stores, and hopefully booksellers can, finish the lifting part. But it's not a given that it just goes on to sell millions of copies.
Right.
Okay, before we finish on this Amazon thing, I did send you a picture here of just a Kindle.
Yeah.
Which also has a review underneath it, if you'll notice.
Yep.
So you'll be walking through a section, and then there'll just be a Kindle sitting there on a wire that says, "Explore the Kindle." And it's like, wow, it's just everywhere. There's also, I didn't really take a picture of it, but there's also like, I think in the background you can maybe see it a little bit over the new hardcover fiction thing. There's a wall of a display for Echo.
Oh, yeah. I see that in the back.
In front of that wall is like a little shelf with the Echo on it, and then like a fan and a lamp, which I didn't see this in action, but I'm looking at this going, wait, this is so that you can talk to the Echo and it'll demonstrate, when you say like, turn on the fan or turn on the lights, and it'll do it, right?
You need that's so they can do. I'm gonna display my old madness in that it can just turn on random lights. Is there some special thing you need to do?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person, but
it seems absurd.
It does seem absurd, but they also have a wall of, most essential sort of gadgetry and that sort of thing. Where there's like cases of USB cables and phone cases and things like that, and cases for your Kindle and all that sort of stuff, also in the store.
Man.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention is, so I went back and found the fiction section, and it's 2 aisles, I guess you would say, all face out, and I did the math because it's not hard. 400 books total.
Whoa.
400 titles. And it is, and I sent you here a picture of one whole shelf being Bernard Cornwell. I think they very clearly just do the math on what are the 400 best-selling books.
Yep.
And they don't care if it means 5 Bernard Cornwells in a row, and then 1 Paulo Coelho. They just don't care. They really don't. And it's weird. It's weird because it also really just everything in the store is just a bestseller.
Yeah.
There's no encouragement to find the hot new thing or anything like that. There's nothing encouraging you to be ahead of the curve or anything like that. It's all just bestseller, 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 bestseller.
I've been thinking about that a lot for something I want to try and write this weekend or next weekend. But about like, did you have the feeling when you were in college that you tried to be involved in reading things that other people didn't read? Mostly. Yeah. Do you think that that's the case at all anymore?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will say, like, working in bookstores, yes, you definitely, it's definitely still a thing. And some of it is cliquish. Like, it's, I forget exactly what the term would be, but it's anti-populist, but it's also a little bit of for the sake of being anti-populist, which is not the worst thing in the world, and it does lead you to make some interesting discoveries. And then hopefully I think I grew out of it. Like, you start out just being like, fuck the system, I'm not conforming, but then you discover things and you're like, oh, wait, no, this actually is interesting. And it leads you down these holes. And then you grow out of doing it for the sake of nonconformity. And then it becomes a sort of what you're comfortable with and what you appreciate about, the larger culture. That's why I've always sort of, you get teenagers or whatever, college kids who come in and it's clear that they're looking for something like that. It's easy to dismiss them as dumb kids, but, it's also, having been there myself and sort of, I think, explored art that way, I appreciate it. And I'm not gonna knock it. It's those kind of people who become readers of the kind of books you publish. So
yeah, and I still to this day don't want to read the big new books.
Yeah, no, I'm very skeptical about those kind of things. And if years from now there's a compelling reason for me to pick up something that I was skeptical of when it first came out, maybe I'll pick it up. But for a lot of things, I'm the same way. I ignore them for as long as possible for the sake of ignoring them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So were there any people in the store?
Oh, God, it was packed.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There were also, I have to say, a shitload of employees.
That seems like Amazon sort of thing in a way.
And it wasn't just, maybe because it was a new store, but it wasn't just the clerks or whatever. There were a lot of people who seemed to be, wearing suits and ties and with little laptops or devices or whatever with lots of information, and they seemed to be observing things and taking notes, and God knows what they were doing, all happening right in the store, right on the floor. So it seemed to be like still, I don't want to say a work in progress because it is quite polished, but they were definitely paying attention to what was going on. Interesting. And I didn't buy anything, obviously. I hope it goes without saying, but my understanding is that you can actually just buy things with your phone. I was going to say that the other thing you didn't mention about those black tags is that they all have barcodes on the bottom. Right. And I wondered if that's something you could do, if you could just like scan that with your phone and purchase it through your Amazon account instantly and have it delivered. Which would be dumb. Why would you do that? Or just pay for... Can you just I think it means like you don't have to go to the register. You can just buy it through your... and then just walk out with that book? Yeah. I think so. That seems like just begging for theft. Yes, I agree. I did overhear when I was near the register at one point, a woman had come up with a book and wanted to buy it, and she was sort of confused, like, how does this work? I see the barcodes, blah, blah, blah. And the woman's like, well, are you an Amazon Prime member? And she's like, no. And she's like, do you want me to tell you about it? And it was, you can tell, like, they were going to ask everyone who came up to that counter, would you like to become an Amazon Prime member? So what happens if you're an Amazon Prime member in relation to these barcodes? I think if you're an Amazon Prime member, buying things is like one touch. I think you would just be able to open the app, like take a picture of that barcode, and it's yours.
Wow. I mean, I was thinking maybe too the barcodes like actually do lead you to the more information. Like, was this book reviewed in the New York Times or whatever the information is on like the pages? But yeah, if you can just buy it
does
through
that
too.
as well.
Yeah,
Because I have that you can use the Amazon app. Like if you're in Target, you can look up items via barcode and get the Amazon reviews. Oh, just a little too much for me.
I can't believe that it was like filled with people. I mean, I guess if you go to any store, it will be.
Today, Friday. This was on a Thursday afternoon at like noon. I mean, the mall itself was fairly packed for reasons I didn't understand, but there was also a Whole Foods there, so I don't know. It's hard to tell. But yeah, it was packed. There were a lot of people wandering around.
Wow. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So do you want to talk too about this? I guess I don't know what else to say about that thing, but about this article on ranking America's largest publishers.
Yeah, I mean, this is, even though I've worked in publishing and, ordered books from publishers, including the Big Five for all these years, this was a little surprising to me. Was it for you?
Like who the top 20 were?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Like I'm specifically, all right, so we should introduce this here. Blah, blah, blah. It says here, anyone even remotely interested in book publishing knows who the Big Five publishers are, if not necessarily in what order they rank. Penguin Random House sold the most units last year, followed by HarperCollins. Simon & Schuster was third. Then Hachette and Macmillan rounded out. And then, so this is all based on sales of individual units as tracked through Nielsen's book scan, which caveat is that it doesn't capture everything. They estimate it's about 2/3 or 70%, somewhere in that range.
But relative, it should be the relative differences between Penguin Random House and HarperCollins should remain the same. Yeah,
exactly. So yes, the top five are Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Hachette, and Macmillan. And I believe in all of those cases, all of their imprints.
Yeah.
And all of their distributed clients probably do fit under there, because I know if you look up a New Directions title in Nielsen, it indicates that it's published by Norton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that even alters this more for me then.
So like Penguin Random House, that includes, I mean, these are, nominal numbers, but New York Review of Books and Archipelago and Europa and other things like that.
Yeah, so they get all the sales of Ferrante and Knausgaard included. Not that, again,
exactly.
Not that that's like huge, but
well, yeah. I mean, in our world, it is. So just all right. And so they have the top 20 here. So outside of the top Big Five publishers / distributors, because all of those top five do some distribution. Maybe not HarperCollins, but Simon does a little bit. Hachette definitely does, and just took over some more. Macmillan, they just have a lot of imprints.
They have Grey Wolf as distributed by them too. Why don't I read them and you tell me which one when you get to the name that surprised you?
Okay.
Okay, so you have those five. Number 6 is Scholastic.
No, I mean they do so many kids' books. It's
Harry Potter. 7, Disney Publishing Worldwide.
Not really. I mean, if you look through any sort of mainstream bookstores, children's department, there are Mickey Mouse books everywhere.
I kind of didn't realize that they were a separate company.
Yes, I thought they were part of Viacom. No,
not Viacom, but
I thought they were part of Simon & Schuster for some reason. But
I think maybe they used to be. That might be why. 8, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt.
That's higher than I thought they'd be.
But that's depressing because they feel like they used to be much bigger.
Yes, but I feel like they've sort of put themselves in a little niche market. I'm impressed. I wonder if a lot of that is backlist.
Yeah,
that's a backlist. So,
and well, they have an education division too, and that's just going to come up here in a minute. 9, Workman.
That Workman, and then number 10 is Sourcebook. Both of which were a little surprising to me because I just don't deal with the books they publish at all.
I don't either, but I know that they're gigantic and that they do so many books and they're all of that sort of whatever, like 101 Ways to Do X, or
Right.
like the dummy sort of books.
They do a lot of regional books, which are, like you were just saying, like 50 things in Rhode Island to do before you die. And they do one for every state in the country. And they do a lot of things like that. And they'll sell. They really do. So
this is funny. You know what's funny on Sourcebooks? They reference this. They reference this article on their front page of their website. But the way that they reference it is they say Sourcebooks named a top 10 publisher in the U.S. as reported in Publishers Weekly.
Named a top 10.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Yeah.
Well, first of all, they're number 10 too. So they're right on the edge. But yeah, that's not really, it's not like it was like, these are the 10 best publishers. It's like, these are the 10 biggest publishers.
Right.
Okay, so those are surprising, but they do so many books. 11 is Sterling.
I don't even know what they published, to be honest. So,
you know, I know that they're owned by Barnes & Noble, which is what it references above. But like, I can't tell you. I just know that they exist.
Yeah.
12, John Wiley and Sons.
They're more the same, it's volume sort of hyper localized sort of stuff, and then just like very broad interest sort of stuff.
Don't they have a lot of business books too?
Yeah, maybe. But like, basic level type stuff.
Yeah. Which people buy. 13 is Abrams.
That is impressive. I like Abrams. They do a lot of art books that aren't terribly expensive, which is probably why they sell so many. And they do a lot of kids' books.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Wiley also Wiley ties into the other thing that both Sourcebooks and Wiley, when you go to their webpage, the first thing that comes up is information about education and students and teaching materials, and that's a huge market.
Oh, it's massive, yeah, I mean, especially because it's rebought year after year after year.
Right, exactly. So Abrams, 13 surprising. 14 Dover was surprising to me, but I guess that's sheer volume too. But those books are those still like $1?
No, they're not. They're most of them are still under $5 though.
Okay.
Which, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, they're largely
public domain,
out of copyright. Yeah, public domain classics from around the world. Stuff in translation too.
Things that are like, and they're very poor quality.
Yes, very poor quality. They have like very boring, sort of academic-y covers. But yeah, if you're in college and you need to read, Jane Eyre, it wasn't translated, so there you go. Why not buy the cheapest edition? Yeah,
going to their webpage is eye-opening too, because like all of their new releases are $25, $19.95, $34.95, and they aren't those books. There's one on algebra, $34.95, and then they have adult coloring book favorites. This is a new sort of company than what I was picturing.
Yeah, no, we used to have like the Dover thrift editions. That I assume is the bulk of their business.
How much do you think Jane Eyre costs from Dover?
I have no idea. Are you looking it up? $2.99 maybe?
$7.
Whoa!
Dover thrift edition is $7, but the ebook edition is 79 cents.
Okay.
So number 15, Candlewick. That totally makes sense too.
Yeah, kids.
16 is Norton, which I believe would be really bolstered by the Norton anthologies.
Norton anthologies and their academic stuff in general, I would say.
Right. Wait, I have one question really quick. I don't know why I don't know this. No, it has to be. So this is just unit sales, not dollar amounts.
Yes.
17 is Kensington.
I think they're more like business kind of book.
A romance, but I might be...
What? No, I think it's more like trade business kind of stuff.
Okay. 18 is Chronicle.
Yeah, Chronicle is... If you've ever bought a gift book for someone, chances are it's done by Chronicle.
Absolutely. B&H Publishing at 19, which I've never heard of.
Don't know what that is at all.
I'm going to guess it's Christian.
It's possible.
20 is Tyndale House, which is definitely a Christian company.
Yeah.
Which those make sense too.
It's definitely eye-opening to know that
Kensington's first books, the best new books on Kensington are Banana Cream Pie Murder and Murder at an Irish Wedding and Dead in the Water.
So just crappy mysteries.
And
basically.
Fern Michaels. Fern Michaels sounds like a familiar name of someone who writes a bunch of books that are really just like crap romances for old people. Women's fiction, general. That's not explanatory at all. That's in Oh, it's starring Teresa Toots Lodenberry, so I'm sure it's wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to know that those volume publishers are out there publishing books that we just don't care about because they aren't, even remotely literary. But they're out there making their money, and people are reading them. I guess it's good people buy these books. I'm glad print books are still filling people's houses, but it definitely makes you realize that what we focus on is very much a very small piece of the pie.
What I don't know, and it would be interesting, is how many different, it would be a huge number, but like how many different publishers are really included, are out there that would make it onto a list like this?
In publishers?
Yeah.
What happens with all the consortium publishers?
I don't know. I mean, I think I guess that those would just be by the publisher still. Because I think when you look our books up, they're just open letter.
Right.
Because it's not going to be, if it's Ingram would be like, very, very much at the top here. Yeah. So, I'm just curious, like, how many publishers make up like 95% of the sales in the United States that would be counted by Nielsen? It's probably like 300.
Right.
And then like all these tiny presses make up that last 5%.
Right. These poetry presses and whatever, very niche specific sort of thing about, apiaries or whatever.
Yeah. So we're going a little long. I've got to go to a thing in a few minutes, but I do want to complain about this last article, unless you have something else to say about that.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So LitHub, our favorite website, came out with.
I would call them a punching bag for the two of us, but that implies that they're sort of downtrodden and woe-begotten, and they are not. Like, everyone loves LitHub, so it's the opposite of that.
Just
go on.
And punching bag for us and for our friend Brian Wood, because he sends me texts almost every day of like a new article that he thinks is stupid. So on the 24th of April, they posted an article called "If They Gave Oscars to Books, Our 2016 Nominees, Who'd Win Best Actress?" Which is dumb. First of all, I don't know what else I could go through. I'm going to go through at least a bit of this of why I think it's dumb. But that's just automatically. I hate these kind of articles. I don't think that they're interesting. I don't think anything about this is interesting. And it's one of those like, let's take books and throw them to this scenario. Like, what if we had like the March Madness of zombie books? Like, how those things are just so vacuous. And this one in particular is annoying because it's basically, they have the categories like best novel, which is the equivalent of best picture, male literary citizen, which is actor in a leading role, female literary citizen, actress in a leading role, debut by a male author, actor in a supporting role, which I don't know what that, I don't know. Female one, best YA novel, which is the equivalent of animated feature film for some unknown reason. Best setting is cinematography. Like, fuck that. And then best book jacket design, costume design. And so it goes through these, and they're like, most of them are exactly what you think they're going to be. The citizen ones are the ones that I found sort of like annoying because I feel like the person who put this article together is just like naming like the people that they want to be a part of their clique or like have them sort of take their glory and have it reflect back on them for. It's not like any of this is like research. It's just random. It's just random things that this person has at hand or in their knowledge.
Right. It's also, I should say, like she starts out by saying, what would happen if the Academy gave Oscars to the book world? Okay, it would be the National Book Awards. It's like, yes, that's exactly it. We did not need this entire article.
This article is absolutely worthless. But then the one that's the most annoying is best editors, which is the equivalent of directing. And the only comment is, oh, you know who you are.
Yeah. She didn't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
By not including it.
For some reason, best work of experimental literature is a category, which is the equivalent of film editing.
Yeah. Also, none of that, I mean, we talked about this. Experimental is quite a stretch on some of these.
Yeah. I completely agree.
It seems to be code for not in a traditional genre or format. Basically.
I thought it was code for code for Ann Carson and then a bunch of people who are published by smaller presses.
Right. Which I mean, I'm quite happy to see civil coping mechanisms on here for what it's worth. But in general, it's a lot of Riverhead, a lot of Knopf, that kind of thing.
And then best book in translation is just completely random.
Oh, I didn't even. Oh yeah,
it's next foreign language film, of course. It has to be the books that are just in the office.
It's definitely possible. This kind of article, and the book world seems to do these often, where they sort of feel the need to attach, the literary culture onto other events in the culture, whether it's the Super Bowl or the NCAA tournament or the Oscars or the Olympics or whatever.
Like we did with the World Literature or the World Cup.
But we had a lot of fun with that. I didn't feel what I was going to say is I feel like it comes out of this place of the Second City sort of little brother inferiority complex thing, where it's like somehow books in the book world don't get enough attention culturally. So let's, piggyback onto these other, praised, well-beloved things. And this is very much a round peg into a square hole kind of situation where it just doesn't work. But, they get to have an article on LitHub, which has nothing to do with movies, where they can talk about the Oscars. So, because it was in the news, it was coming up.
And the thing that I really dislike too is this other, like the next one, Coolest Publicity Squad, which is the equivalent of production design. And it's Riverhead, Melba House, Kima Jones, Harper Perennial, Broadside PR, Instagram. Like, what the fuck is that? It's dumb. And like, it all feels like one big long circle jerk too.
Which, I mean, I feel that way about a lot of what goes on to LitHub and to these similar websites in general, that it's all just people promoting each other over and over and over again.
I don't think it accomplishes anything.
I don't think it accomplishes anything, and I've said this so many times, that readers, customers in bookstores who are just normal people who have jobs that have nothing to do with publishing, but who like to read good books, have no idea what LitHub is.
Yeah.
No idea. And I don't really know why so much time and effort and resources are dumped into it when I don't really think it accomplishes anything. I don't think it drives sales, and that should be the point of all of this. If you're not going to be a critic, if you're not going to do it like the Los Angeles Review of Books does, if you're not going to publish actual criticism, talk about issues, and they don't here, if you're just going to be a publicity machine, then you need to help sell books, and it doesn't.
Yeah, it also there's another option for it, or for validity would be community building, which
it's not nothing. I mean, in other realms of society, it's incredibly important, and I think I don't know if you went to AWP this year, but AWP is essentially just that. It's reminding people that these writers who live in wherever, that there is this larger community that they're a part of. And part of why I like going to Winter Institute is wrapped up in that.
Right, but I don't know that they do that in here on their site.
Yeah, it's unclear. It's hard to see if that actually happens, since it is all based online,
Right. I'm just looking for comments. There's usually 0.
Oh, there's 4 at the bottom of this one that have nothing to do with anything. It's just 4 random things. Somebody complaining about poetry, blah, blah, blah.
I do know that someone used to post comments on here under pseudonyms, and they would frequently be deleted if they were of a contrary opinion.
Really?
Or a joke. Oh, absolutely. They got deleted a lot.
That's not cool.
No, not at all. And sometimes they're legitimate, but just clearly tongue in cheek. And other times they were intentionally a little bit taking things a little bit too far. And they're all incredibly funny, and they would get deleted all the time. So I don't know how you build a community in which you don't allow for anyone to play in it. It's like a sandbox that's only allowed for the people who are the most serious builders and already appreciate the sandbox that you've built for them.
Right.
weird. Very weird. Do you have anything else that you want to add? Or a rant or a rave? There's been a lot of rants.
Don't really have anything at the moment, I don't think. Oh, I did want to mention, just because the name issue, also because it's foreign and it sort of ties in and it's sort of sci-fi. Have you watched the Netflix series called 3%? It's Brazilian. The credits at the beginning of this, so it's a Netflix series, one season, I want to say 8 episodes. It's credited as Netflix's first Portuguese language Brazilian feature. I had thought it was made in Brazil and aired on TV there, which it was originally several years ago, but they redid it, but kept it in, so that the sets and everything appeared nicer, I think, if you look at the pictures. But it was redone. Netflix redid it, but still kept, Brazilian actors and everything. It's the opposite of the 3% that we sort of deal with. It's 100 years in the future, something like that, and the world has gone to shit, and an elite part of society decided to occupy some island or something like that they call the offshore, but they could only hold 3% of the population there. And so once a year, to make up for people who have died in the last year or whatever, they take all 20-year-olds and put them in through this series of tests to see if they are worthy of joining the idyllic society offshore. And so the show is tracking this group, this year's group of I don't know how many start out, a couple hundred, until it gets down to like 10 people as they try to get to the offshore. And there's lots of intrigue and blah blah blah. But it's 3% because only 3% of the world basically lives in what you would consider comfort and not misery. So they're trying to get there. But it's interesting. And I don't know. I thought it was interesting that Netflix decided to just keep it in Portuguese and everything.
That's really cool.
I think you might like it. It's not unlike Utopia.
Oh, which is so good.
Yes.
Which is not being made into an American version.
It's been a long time
They
since
canceled it.
Oh, they canceled it. Okay, good.
Yeah, so that's fine by me. You know what show I've been watching that I really love, which I don't know if you'll love or not, but you might appreciate the cinematography of, is Legion on FX. That's based on a character from the X-Men comic books, but is not really related in any way, shape, or form, and is basically just inspired by that and done by Noah Hawley, who made Fargo and is also an author. But the first episode of that is the most carefully produced and edited and filmed TV show I've ever seen in my life. And it's got a bit of the Utopia vibe in the way that it's shot and that it looks and the colors that they use and the sort of broad, wide, expansive images. But it's beautiful to watch. It's confusing as fuck, which I like and like can get into of like not knowing what real is in the show or like what's inside his head and what's not. And it's really fun and compelling in that way. And they're doing things that TV shows have not seen TV shows do probably ever, which is very cool. But the cinematography on it and just the production is beautiful. But you should check it out, like the first episode in particular.
Okay.
Because he filmed that one himself or directed it, and it's wonderful. But other than that,
I got nothing.
had nothing either. So I guess I'll call it good there. Oh, I do have one last thing. So if anyone's still listening to this, first of all, it'd be great if you like reviewed us and rated us on iTunes, all that kind of stuff. But also, I got a text message from one of our friend that listens that said that he really appreciated when we went through articles and discussed them. So I was going to say that's cool to do every so often or more often. But also, if people out there have ideas of articles that they'd like us to look at or talk about, they should email us at 3percentpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, that would be good. I mean, we pay attention as much as we can, but we have other things to do and don't read every publication and see every link. And the lifespan of some of these things is often very short. so we might miss it if we go to the beach. So definitely, if anyone has any idea, I do think it's always interesting to unpack these things because they are so often condensed, and you don't get a lot of the context that is necessary to really sort of break down what exactly is driving the argument or whatever in these articles. So, if anyone has any ideas, would definitely appreciate it, and we'll probably dig right into it.
Absolutely. So, cool. Well, that's all for this week, and we'll be back shortly.
All right.